Okay, so welcome, guys. Uh, my name is Dennis Washira, and this is Kenya Data Platform User Group. We are continuing with our TypeScript 101 series. This is event number 7, and I'm glad to be part of this, and I hope we shall get to learn something today about functions. And a little bio about me. Um, I'm Washida Dennis again from Kirinyaga University, a good Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. And you can always find me on LinkedIn as Dennis Washida. And also all the recordings of the past events, you can get them on my YouTube channel, which is at Code with Dennis. Then you can follow me on Twitter at Dennis Washira _. And it's always our tradition uh, to adhere to with our code of conduct as we encourage a culture of respect and inclusion, whether it's in person or online, and also the way we communicate matters. So respect others and their opinions, and also use an inclusive language. Constructive feedback makes everyone better. So create an environment where everyone feels comfortable and to ask questions. And again, so welcome to today's session. We want to master functions in TypeScript, and functions are the fundamentals, building blocks in any programming language. And TypeScript includes some powerful features to them. We'll cover everything from basic functions declaration to some advanced concepts like function overloading and overriding. And the first thing to ask yourself is what is a function? And functions are the workhorses of our code. They allows us to break down complex problem into smaller, manageable pieces, making our code easier to write, read, and maintain. So in this case, what I mean is modularity, able to break a complex problem into smaller, manageable piece of code that is easier to read also and maintain. And the think of like a recipe analogy. It's a good way to think about it. So you provide the ingredients, which are the arguments, then the functions, like maybe the kitchen or the function, processes them to give you a dish out of those ingredients you provided. So that's how function work. And let's start with the basic. So this slide shows a standard way how we declare functions in TypeScript. And if you notice, um, the type annotations for the parameter and the return type. So when I say, so this is the type annotation of parameters, the arguments, and also the return type of that function. Then this is one of the key benefits of TypeScript, where you type your argument and also your functions, and this will help us or help you to catch errors in early stage during the compile time instead of runtime. And kindly, if you join the meeting, kindly ensure to mute. Just a second. Okay, thank you. So this is just a basic how function declaration is done in TypeScript. We have the keyword function, then you have the function name, then we have parentheses where you pass your arguments with the type annotation, then the type annotation of that function, then the function body where you write your code on what you want to do. So these are good an example of a function to add two numbers or two variables, which is now x, which is of type number, then y, which is type of number also, and also the function we expect is to return a number, which is the addition of x plus y. And as we continue, we have various or types of functions in TypeScript, and beside the traditional functional declaration, like the previous we have checked, this is the traditional way. We can also define our functions as an expression. So this is particularly useful for creating anonymous functions or when working with arrow functions, which provide more science syntax. So an example of function expression, it's the one displayed on the screen where you have a data type const, then and the function name, then you assign it now the function you want to do, like the addition, then you return the addition of these two arguments. And we shall explore this on our VS Code. So let's get to see another type of function, which is arrow function. So they are powerful features in a modern JavaScript or TypeScript, and they offer more compact way to write functions, especially on short ones. So a key difference on it's how they handle these key word binding, which we'll touch on it later on the session. So this is an example of how you define an arrow function. So the key difference between the normal or traditional function or an arrow function. So an arrow function, it has this symbol here, like the equals or the assignment symbol, then greater than symbol. So it is shorter, and also it has more features on how it handle these keyword binding. Then another type of function, it's optional and default parameter. So TypeScript allow us to define optional and the default parameters, making our functions more flexible. And this let us handle cases where some inputs might not always be provided. Like for instance, like this function here. So we have a function greet, which has two arguments or parameters. So this is the first argument, name of string, then a greeting, which is initialized by a default value, which is hello. So when you call this function, you can guide if you are joining the meeting. Dalton, make sure to mute to avoid distraction. Yeah, thank you. I was talking about optional and default parameter function. Just a minute to manage this user here. Thank you. Optional and default parameter function. So they always they let us handle cases where some inputs might not always be provided. So for instance, what I was talking about, we have this function which is greet. Then it has two arguments, which is name and greetings. Then greeting is initialized with a value, which is hello. So this is a default parameter, like default value for these variable greetings. So when I call this function, I can decide to just pass the name, and by default, the function will know like the greetings will be assigned to this hello string here. So, and the function, if I pass like an example, my name, so the function will be like hello. So hello, this is the default parameter. Then the name have passed, which is Dennis. So it will be hello, Dennis. And if I decide to pass a greeting also, like hey. So the function will know like I've passed a greeting string, which is a, and now it will update this value from hello to hey Dennis. And let's continue. Another type of function, it's function overloading. And function overloading lets us to define multiple functions, versions of functions with different parameter or types or number. And this helps TypeScript understand how to use the function in various situations and prevent errors. So this is an example of function overloading. I have a function, same function, which is function and which has two parameter or argument, which is number x of type number and y. Then the same function, I'm calling it with I'm passing it a different data type, which is x of type string and y of type string, and a return type of string. Then at the bottom, I'm implementing the function. So the function, I can type it with any data type or unknown. Then inside the function, I can now, if I've typed it with unknown, I can type check the the data type that is coming, that is being passed on the function, and act accordingly, maybe using the quotations. If the input is maybe a string, do an uppercase. If it's a number, do this, and that's all. So we will be able to check and work with an example of function overloading in the in our demo. And list, but last but not in the list, it's callback functions. And so these are function allows us to define optional or a function, sorry. So a callback function is a function that is passed as an argument to another function, and it is executed later. And this commonly used in asynchronous programming, where asynchronous programming, event handling, and functional programming. And why use callback functions? So they handle asynchronous operations, e.g. like an API request or timers. Then also it allows modular and reusable code, and also improves code flexibility by passing the behavior as an argument. Yeah, so an example of a callback function, it's this one here. So a simple example is where you have where this is a function process user input. So this function user input accept a string and a callback function. So when I call this function process user input, it processes the data, which is now the let greetings be hello, the name that I've passed in that function. Then later it executes the callback function by passing the message which we have processed from the function, which is now hello Dennis, and now output this the message here on the callback function. And the final message will be now hello Dennis. And I think I've not confused you. We shall look this on our demo and be able to see how a callback function work. And this is another example of a delayed callback function. So I have the same function with a callback function as a parameter in that function. Then when I call this function, it has a delayed time or execution of 2 seconds. When I call this function, the first thing will be this to be executed, like console logging, so fetching data. So this is mostly used when maybe getting data from an API response, where you need to wait for some minutes so that the request can get from your browser to where the server is hosted and get you a response. So after the response has come back, you now call the callback function, which is now displayed the data loaded successfully after the execution is done. And finally, it's demo time. So let's go into our VS Code and try some different type of functions and see how they can be powerful when working with them in TypeScript. And up to that, before we switch on to our VS Code, if you have any question, you can raise your hand or use the chat feature to ask your question. Yes, we have Sawe. You can go ahead. Somebody have raised. Yes. Hello. Sawe, I raised your hand. So okay, I don't know what has happened to Sawe, but if you can access the chat, you can type your question there. So let me share my screen, my VS Code. And if you can see my VS Code, a thumbs up. Thank you, Anthony. Just a minute. Okay, so last time we left at this point where you are talking about the union. We talked about intersection. We talked about various the enums and also type alliance. So today it's all about functions. So I want to create another file under my source folder, then and call it functions.ts. And then under this file, as always, I want to make it export, which can be exported. So I want to use the keyword export, then const the name of that file, which is functions, then equals parenthesis an arrow function. So if you are not aware, we have been using this arrow function from the day one when we started exporting these files from our variable file, you can see these are an arrow function. In the intersection, the same, we have an arrow. So at the function, so I want to just to console log a message to confirm like my file will be exported successfully. So just a console log hello from function.ts, then come back on my index file and import that file. So import functions from this the same directory. So functions.ts, then and just below this line of code here, I just want to display just to call these functions here, this function there, then terminate, then I can start up my project with pnpm run dev. So let's wait for the project to spin up and to test whether our rotation of the file is correct. Yeah, you can see our response here. It's a row from a TS, so that means our file has been exported correctly in our index file. So we can get started with the basic functions. So let me delete that. And we said how we define a function in TypeScript or any programming language. I use the keyword function function and the function name. So I just want to write the syntax of how you write a function. So function name, then parentheses. So under parentheses, that's where you pass your argument. You can have your argument 1, then you can have your argument 2, and so on and so on. Then outside the parentheses, you open the curly braces. Now that's where your body of your functions of your function comes in. So that's where you write your function body, and maybe if the function has a return type, you can use the return keyword and now return the value you want to return there. So this is how a syntax of a function is done in TypeScript. So you use the keyword function, then the function name, then argument 1, argument 2, then you can also remember you are using TypeScript, so you need to type everything. So here you need to pass the data type you are passing there, and the same with the same argument, you need to pass the type. And also even the function itself, you need to type the return type of that function. Like if it's returning a number, you need to type it with that number there. If it's returning a string, you need to do that. So let me now do a simple function, which is a named function that return a string. So I want to have a function which maybe say hello, or I can just start with a function with a return type void. So that means does not return anything. So let me type here. So it's function and maybe say hello. then parentheses. So under parentheses, I will not be passing any argument. I just leave at that. Then the return type of this function, I just want it to just to return nothing. So I just type it with a void, then open curly braces, and under my inside my curly braces, I can just console log a message, just saying hello, maybe welcome to TypeScript functions session. And as always, our project is having a watch mode. So anytime we make a change, it always runs and transpire our code. And our in our console log. So anytime you declare a function or you define a function, you need to call that function. So that can be called when the project recompiles and transpires. So I need to call that function here so that you can get now the message, which is hello, welcome to TypeScript function session. So this is a function with the return type void, so it does not return anything, and if you try to return a string here, so return maybe hello, you'll get an error. Why? Because our function says like a type string, it's not assignable to type void. So remember, we already said that our function does not return anything, and here you are trying to return a string, so we'll get that error there. So with that said, let me go back to where the function was. So comment that, then let's have another named function, which now just has a parameter which we need to pass when we are calling this function. So I have a function which is now maybe the same function, just a different name, which is now greet, then parentheses. Under the parentheses, I want to pass now a parameter, which is name. And then outside my function, I just want to return hello name. So I can do this. So return, then hello, use the concatenate plus operator to concatenate this the string with the name that I'm passing. So this is the normal JavaScript way of dividing a function, but we are in TypeScript, so we need to type this function and also the argument. So I want my variable name to be of type string. Then also I want to be the return type of this function. I want also to be a string also. So and now with this, I'm able now to type my argument and also the function, and also you can see our function, it's as just hello and the name. So when I want to call this function now, which is greet, and I need to pass a name on my function. So these are parameterized function. Anytime you need to, you call this function, and if you don't include or add the parameter, you will get a TypeScript error saying like the function expect one argument but got zero argument. So you need to pass that argument there, which is now Dennis. You will not see anything on the console log because we have not console logged this. So we need now to console log this function so that you can get the message. So console.log, then open parentheses, and here close the parentheses. And with that, you'll be able to see now the message, which is now hello, Dennis. So this is a named function. So let me comment here. So this is a named function. Under that, so I want now to have a function expression. So a function expression, it's mostly used with the anonymous function or when trying to have an arrow function. So, and function expression. So function expression. You need now to have a variable like that stores the result or the return of your function. So an example is the same function here. So I have now a function which is const greet, then assign it now our function here. So our function, the parentheses to pass our argument, then our type, which is string, and the return type of our function, which is a string also, and then the return message. So this and this, they will do the same thing. So would I call this now function? So I just do the console log, then create, pass the name, and you'll be able to see we are having the same message. So this is a named function where you just define the function name, then the argument, the return type of that function, and the function body. The same with function expression. So you kind of like you store or you declare a function, assigning it to the, you declare a function as a variable, then assign it the implementation of your that function. Then you can now call the create with and do the same thing with that. With that, so with named functions, are great for readability. So I see this for my conveniences. I see like a named function being great readability, but expression, this function expression are mostly useful when working with callbacks. So we'll be able to see how function expression are useful when working with callbacks. The next type of function is arrow function. And the way you define or declare an arrow function is a simple one. So just a comment there. Then we use the syntax of the function expression to define an arrow function. So the same way here, I have a variable, so const, which is now and, which is now our function name, maybe and numbers. Then assign it the argument. So I want to add just num1, which is of type number. Then num2, the same of data type number. Then the return type of this arrow function, I want it to be the same to return a number. Then you have the equals and the greater than to indicate that this is an arrow function. So equals, then greater than. So greater than, then open curly braces. So if it's a one-line function, you don't need to add the curly braces. You can just do your function body there, like maybe now num1, because I want to do just addition. I can just do that, and these are valid function, arrow function in TypeScript. And we saying like the one useful, the importance of arrow function, they are shorter And you can see with one line of code, you have your function to add two numbers. But if you want now, you have a multiple lines in your function, you can now use the curly braces and now return the num1 and num2. And if I call now this function, so console log, then add numbers 10 and 20, you'll be able to see the addition of these 10 and 20, which is this. And we say like we can call now this function multiple time with the different parameters. So the second, I can call now the console log, or just to copy paste this to save time. So I can call this now with a different value, and it will work the same. So you can see like now we have 10 plus 20, which is 30. Then we have 100 plus 200, which is 300. So you can see arrow functions, they are shorter, and also they are very useful when coming to or working with modern JavaScript or TypeScript, and mostly when working with something we call async and wait or callback also. And the other one, the other functions type we want to check is optional and default parameters. So let me comment this. We said optional, so you may decide now to pass that parameter or not. Then the default parameter will be applied when you don't pass the optional parameter. So let me have an example here. So a function to multiply. So multiply, and just want to multiply A and B, and of data type number. So it's always good routine to type your TypeScript code. And the return type of this is also a number. So when I say optional are the default parameters, so at your in the parentheses where you pass your argument, it's where you can define your default parameter. So I can pass this B with a default parameters, which is maybe I can pass it with 2 or 3. And when I call this function just below here, so function to multiply two numbers, and if I pass just one value, the function will work correctly because A, the first parameter here, so it is considered to be the first argument in my function. So this will be assigned to this. And B is already as a default value, which is 2. So it will multiply 5 times 2 and give us the response, which is 10. But if I pass the second argument, now 50, it will override the default value and now multiply 5 times 50, which is 250. And that's how you work with optional and default parameters. And the other thing we did not cover, and I would like to demonstrate, we have this feature we have when passing parameters, we call them rest parameters. So rest parameters. It's mostly useful when maybe doing some additions, or you want to add maybe like an e-commerce. So you have a shopping list, and you want to get the prices of each item that has been added in the price in the shopping cart, but you don't know the number of items in that array of that shopping cart. So rest parameter or rest operator, it's most useful, and it's good useful and now working with such kind of functionality where you don't know the number of items that are present in that, maybe the data structure you are trying to do the addition or multiplication or anything. So I want to have a function here. So function sum. So I want to add some to add like to add or sum the prices of items that are in our shopping cart. I don't know uh, the number of items, so I can now use these 3 dots. So the rest operator, the 3 dots, to spread every argument that is in that array, or maybe queue or stack. So I want to spread, and maybe let me use numbers for this case. So I'm spreading the numbers, and these numbers are of data structure array, data structure type, which is array. So I want to type it with maybe it's an array of numbers, so I need to type that with array of numbers. Then the return type of this function is just the sum of numbers. So of course I expect it to return the number, then open the curly braces, and inside our function, so I want to return the addition. So addition, so they return then addition. So what I'm doing, I'll spread these numbers. Like if it's like 10 numbers, I'll be able to spread these numbers using these 3 dots here, the rest operator. So I can now comfortable use now this array when I've spread them. So I call this array numbers, and I remember the functions or the method we can use on our array. So if I use the dot, I'll be able to see all the functions that I can perform on this array. But for this case, I want to reduce. So reduce is like adding each number of that value in that array. So I want to find the reduce function, which is this reduce. Then under that reduce, I want to have a callback function. Don't worry, we shall talk about the callback function as we end the meeting. So a callback function, I just to have the accumulation, like the addition of these elements. So from like maybe accumulate and each number in this numbers array, then use the arrow function to accumulate the numbers plus each number that's now which is being iterated from this numbers array. Then the callback function has 2 parameters, the callback function and a default parameter, where now you want your sum to start. So I want the addition to start from 0. Then with this, I can console log now my function and pass some array of numbers there. So console.log, then I call my function, then I pass some value. So the function does not know how many elements I've passed. So I've used this spread operator. So the rest to spread my values or the argument, then I want to type them with type of number. Then the return type of this is get those numbers, reduce them, like count, iterate through these numbers, and that accumulation to each number. Like the initialization is 0. So when I call this function the first time, it will get the accumulation, which is 0. Then the first number or the first index of these numbers is 1. So it's 0 plus 1, which is 1. Then update accumulation to 1. Then the next number is 2. So it's 1 plus 2, and so on and so on. And from that, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus blah, 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 up to 10, you get it's this 55. So this is how now use this spread operator to spread your values or arguments, then do whatever mathematic functions or any functionality you want to do with those arguments. So this is how now like mostly the shopping cart does. So the function that expect to calculate the prices of your items in the shopping cart, it does not know how many items you have added, but in the with the help of the spread operator, is able to spread all the items you have added in the shopping cart and be able to accumulate those values or maybe the prices and be able now to give you the total price of every item that is being added in your cart. And finally, let's look about a callback function example. So he said a callback function is a type of function where you pass a functions and as an argument. So just below here. We have an example of a function, a callback function, which is now maybe to process users input. So callback function. I just want to start with a simple callback function. So I have a function, maybe process users input. Maybe it's a function that is where user is inputting is user credentials, then waiting for some process to happen, then call the callback function. So process user input. This user input, it has two parameters. Now the first one is the name of the arguments. I want like the name to be one of the argument, then comma, then the callback function that I want to pass it also as a argument in my function process input. So I use the callback then I need to type this callback also with so I just need to type this callback also with this parenthesis here, then pass the message. This message is also of type string. Then this callback function, I need to type it with a void return type. Then outside my function, I need the curly braces so that I can be able now to implement my callback function. So under this, I want to declare a variable here, which is let greetings be assigned to just a simple message here. I just want to use the string interpolation so that I can say maybe hello, then use the $sign and curly braces to dynamically pass my argument in my return in this string here. So I want to pass that name dynamically here using the string interpolation. Then after this, the function has assigned this, it has processed the name. It calls this function. So just below my implementation here, I want now to call my callback function and pass this whatever is being processed by the function before calling that callback function. So I want to pass now the greetings here. So this is now the function definition. We can now call the function here. So passing the function as a callback. So I want now to call my function process user input. Then the first argument is the name as a string. So it's Dennis or any name you want to pass there. Then comma. Then my callback function. So the callback function, I just want to pass the message that is being processed by this function. So I need now the parentheses, then the message. Remember this message here. So the message. And this message, I just want to console log that message. So I just need to use now the arrow symbol, then the console log, then the message that we are passing there. And if you are keen enough in our console log already, the function, the callback function has already like executed the first line of code where now we are passing the name in this string, then storing this into these greetings, then calling our callback function and giving it, processing it, the message we are processed in our previous line of code. So if I change this to anything else, you see a difference. So maybe John, and you see like it's now hello John. And to get a clearer view of how callback function work, I want to delay the implementation of this. Then we wait until it is done so that we can now have our callback function. So let me comment this out and have a delayed callback function to simulate how you fetch data from an API. You need to wait for that some seconds so that you can be able now to get the response. Then the response, you pass it in a callback function to do something else. The same, so I just need a function here. Function maybe fetch data from an API, or then under this function, I just want to pass the callback function. I don't want to pass more arguments. I want just to pass the callback. Function, then this callback function. I just want to pass the data that is coming maybe from that API I'm trying to fetch data from. Then it's over any return type of callback. We always type it with a void to avoid some errors. So it's void. Then inside our function body, I just need to console log a message there. So I need to process something here before we call our callback function. So maybe console log, then maybe a message, maybe fetching data from function from an API. So then after you have processed this, so I want to delay this, sorry. So I want to delay this, the message here so that you can be able now to see how a callback function waits for the first code implementation to execute. And after it executes, it passes the whatever the execution was being trying to fetch, then to the callback function. So I need to have maybe a set timeout here function. So set timeout it's also a function, then a callback function with just the curly braces there. Then inside my this set timeout, I want now just to call my callback function. So I'm passing the callback function under this set timeout so that I can be able to delay this callback before now we get this. Then after 2 seconds or 3 seconds, we fire our callback function. So callback, maybe now the message which is now data fetched successfully. And this set timeout, there's 2 arguments, the function and also the time we want to pass. So I can pass, the time is calculated in microseconds. So if I want 3 seconds, maybe it's 3000 because 1000 microsecond is 1 second. And now if I call this function here, so fetch data, then console log the data that I'm getting. So this is just maybe the data that I'm getting. So if I call this, take a look here. So you can see like it's fetching data. After 3 seconds, you get the second, the callback function, which is now data fetched successfully. If I can simulate that again, let me add some like maybe 5 seconds, then call my function again. So the message fetching data, then after 5 seconds, we call our callback function, which is now data fetched successfully. So this is how you implement callback function. We think they are useful, but in the recent past days or years, there have been emerging other ways to implement this using the async and await function. I think we shall talk about that in our next session because I can see our time is not on our side. And I think that will be the end of today's session about functions. We have been able to look callback function. We have been able to look the rest parameter, the functionality, how you spread the number of maybe the arguments you have, you don't know the actual number, so you need to have the spread operator, and you can use the arrow function, then function expression, and that's all from me. If you have any question, it's time to ask that question or a feedback before we end our meeting. Any question or a feedback? Silence means that people are okay. I hope so. So without further ado, I wish you a nice evening and to really thank you for showing up for this session. They might not, they are not, these events cannot be successful without you guys. So we really appreciate your time, making time to attend our session. So our next session will be next week, Wednesday, and we will go on with the remaining functions and also now chip in with the loops and conditions in TypeScript. So that will be the topic of next week. Then maybe later on the weekend, we can try now to jump into some serious concepts in TypeScript, like the object-oriented uh, programming in TypeScript. And I hope to see you in our future session. And for the recording, as always, on the YouTube channel, Code with Dennis, I'll be sharing the recording uh, later when we end the meeting. So thank you guys. Have a good night and see you